Well, Lord Born, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it's all my pleasure also to share with you some reflections, some moments this morning on innovation and especially on clean tech industries and on energy in general. Switzerland has a long experience in all these fields, and that's why we have been very, very happy about the Paris Agreement, where we also were part of, and we had also there quite a lot to do that finally we could overcome some countries which have to be reluctant up to the last minutes of the COP. Ladies and gentlemen, do you believe in the chaos theory? The butterfly effect in the Amazon and the hurricane in Texas are only a metaphor. But with everything we do, we influence our world. We in Switzerland know that we are talking about reality. For example, there was the pig farm effect. These farms had a negative influence on the quality of water in some of our lakes. After a great deal of effort aimed at protecting bodies and water, we were finally able to clean up our lakes and rivers. Today, almost everywhere, we have drinking water quality. The period since the 1970s has marked a first step in the direction of sustainable technologies in Switzerland. We have come to understand that environment policy has also an impact on our economy. The effects of our actions on the climate are similar to those on our bodies of water. The direct impacts of the Industrial Revolution in the second half of the 19th century were air pollution and respiratory diseases. Today, it is CO2 and other greenhouse gas that are negatively impacting our environment. According to the IPCC, in the past 50 years, our planet has warmed by around 0.13 degrees Celsius. And according to NASA, in the Antarctic, more than 100 million tons of ice flow into the ocean each year. In Switzerland, we can see evidence of this warming trend in the form of glacier retreat. Generally speaking, weather phenomena all over the world are indications of the influence human beings have on the climate. Droughts in various regions due to El Niño, torrential rain and flooding in other regions, including in the UK. While this may not have a direct correlation with today's actions, the total sum of human activity over the long term has undoubtedly had an impact on the global climate. In view of this, the Paris Agreement represents an important step that the international community can join forces in combating global warming. For the first time, all 195 countries have adopted a legally binding agreement to limit global warming. The earlier Kyoto Protocol only applied to industrialized nations, and this has long since proved to be inadequate. The earlier distinction between industrialized and developing countries has been overtaken by reality. China, we all know it, for example, is now the world's biggest emitter of CO2, and in some years will probably overtake India, the Chinese, in its position as the world's biggest emitter of CO2. For the first time, every country has submitted a national target and specified measures aimed at reducing their emissions, and these targets are to be audited every 5 years. The agreement also takes account of the differing socio-economic status of individual countries. Ahead of us, ladies and gentlemen, is now the implementation and ratification of the Paris Agreement. It will be a base for innovation, for new technologies, new materials, and new solutions, and it's a global market for us. Countries like Switzerland and the UK should therefore use these opportunities. The financial sector should do the same, because an important part of the $100 billion should be mobilized from the private sector. A lot of pledges, a lot of promises, but Lord Byrne, I'm not so sure if you also see fast enough results. As a minister, I have no interest in pledges and promises. We need results. And we are here together to think about the next years, what we can contribute, what we can also profit. Unfortunately, we are still a long way from a sustainable energy supply. The yield from coal mining throughout the world is expected to rise from the present day 8 billion tons to more than 9 billion by 2030. In Switzerland, we could reduce our overall energy consumption in the past 5 years and decouple it from economic growth. Per capita, energy consumption is currently around 6,300 watts a year, a long way away from our vision of a 2,000 watt society, but much better than most European countries. The UK's and Switzerland's strategic energy policy goals are essentially the same: supply security, low costs, high degree of climate compatibility. With respect to nuclear energy, of course, our strategy now differs. In 2011, in the aftermath of the Fukushima disaster, the Swiss government and parliament decided that Switzerland should not construct new nuclear plants. The existing 5 nuclear reactors in our country will continue to run for as long as they are safe. Today, they account for around 38% of our electricity supply, while hydropower accounts for around 56%, and other forms of renewables energy to approximately 4%. Switzerland has formulated a new energy policy which is divided in the following elements. Our first most important pillar is energy efficiency. We consume too much energy. Here, especially in the transport sector and in our buildings. Energy efficiency is therefore our most important pillar, and the potential for efficiency is huge. Retrofit old buildings to the standard we have for new buildings. We have now the standard for new buildings, which is the Plus Energy House. It exists, it's reality. So how can we change the existing old buildings also in another quality, in another level of energy consumption? We have a program here, also with some subsidies, where we use from a CO2 levy, and it works very well. It's an effort, and we can accelerate the rate of renovation, retrofitting old buildings. Public transportation and e-mobility is also a very important pillar. We need here also less fossil energy, and with the development of new technologies, we can make our path. We have incentives for the industry. They can have with our ministry an agreement, normally with a time of 10 years. Then they can have a target, an objective for the company to reduce energy, may it be on the mobility, may it be on industrial processes, may it be on heating, cooling, whatever. It's really focused on the needs of the company. When they reach the objective, they get a tax reduction. It's an incentive, it's a macroeconomic mechanism, and it works very well, especially for the industry, which is a high consumer of energy. The second pillar is the use and increase of renewable energy. Switzerland possesses a significant source of renewable energy in the form of hydropower, but the proportions of solar, wood, biomass, and wind energy in our country's energy supply are also increasing. We did not need to develop this sector because with nuclear and hydropower, we could practically by 100% produce our own electricity need. So now when we phase out nuclear, here we have something to do. We have a potential. We have therefore also here a time limited and also a capped feed-in tariff for renewable energy sources. Our third instrument in this policy is research and development. Switzerland generally invests a lot of money in education, research and development, about 24 billion Swiss francs within 4 years. It's more than 3% of our GDP. We are strong because, well, as a resource small country, we don't have water, we have no oil, no gas, so we, like UK, we are importers of energy, so we have only one chance to survive, and that's innovation. It's the driver of our economy. And also here, we invest because we think that's the potential of economic growth. In collaboration with excellent partners in economy and industry, our country is for many years at the top of the Global Innovation Index and followed by United Kingdom, which is second. And we try our best, Lord Bourne, that we can maintain our position, that our universities can have the best talents, and the government is ready to continue our increase of investments in the budgets for R&D. Thanks to those investments, concrete results have been realized. For instance, researchers found a method to produce petrol out of water, CO2 and sunlight. This is something which is quite promising. We have a competence center which is looking for all kind of storage solutions, because we know, everybody knows, when we have a solution that we can store the sun from summer times to winter times, okay, solved. When we can reduce our consumption for heating our houses in winter times massively, one problem less. So here we have 7 competence centers focused each on one item, and they get money for that. Swiss researchers also invented a fusion reactor that allows to develop the future of energy. We need more cooperation. That's why we are here. Switzerland is always on research and in general an open country, especially with the European Union, with European countries. We think we should now really go ahead after the Paris Agreement and cope much more, because it's a potential. And Europe is a technology leader today, and when we want to have also the leading position tomorrow, we should partner, we should increase our cooperation. For Switzerland, it's also important, therefore, that we have new forms of cooperation. We focus, therefore, in the cleantech sector very much of applied solutions, because when we have results which we can commercialize very fast, I think this is very important for our citizens, but also for the consumers. That's why we have CTI. It's a platform for innovation where companies can apply for a financial support of their research activities. We have here also an export platform for the cleantech industry, today integrated in Swiss Global Enterprise, because you know a lot of SMEs, when they have a product, it's difficult for them to go to India, to China, and bring their products on these markets. So here we think governments have a role to play, and export platforms which get a financial contribution from governments have an excellent position to help to commercialize these products. On innovation, we think, also when I think to UK, we will talk later with the minister, I think here you should learn from Switzerland in the building sector. You waste energy in your buildings. Sorry to say that. But well, if I would be a British citizen, you could reduce your bill quite fast, and technology is available. We have these technologies, so ready to sell it to you. And I'm sure you have a lot of opportunities we can learn from you. And I think that's exactly what we have to do. Switzerland does not partner with everybody. We choose our partners. UK, we would welcome to be a good partner. And therefore, I hope that all this inspiration you will get from this collaboration will lead us to new areas. In the building program we created in 2008 in Switzerland, we use CO2 levy to finance that. So it's actually not government's money, it's a CO2 levy we have on crude oil. It's CO2 friend investments. And we have here the expertise that we began really with very common retrofitting programs, more focused on insulation and windows and roofs, so you know all these kinds. And now we're changing the programs because IT has become a new importance. Smart buildings, smart homes are something we should look at. We think, and I think the same is valuable for UK, the digitalization is a big chance also for the energy and for the clean tech part of our economy. We can steer energy consumption. We can reduce consumption by showing people, industry, where they waste energy, where they could, with adapting the need and the production, reduce consumption, have energy efficiency gains. And here I think IT plays a crucial role. That's why we changed our program a little bit in this sector, because here it's not only smart metering, it's also the smart grid solutions. It's really applications, apps, which will help the consumer on his own responsibility to reduce consumption. Here I think we can also put our forces together. And especially in the heavy industry, I think here a lot of things are ahead of us. This means normally first investments. And that's not a good point for many companies to invest. Here the financial sector has to step in. In Switzerland we have not a very risky attitude, as you know. We are an insurance country. And that's part of our culture. And here we need also financial institutions not to go below every risk, but to help us to have at least not always some very difficult conditions for investors, that we look also here, how can the financial industry support innovation? The famous valley of death is a reality for many companies. And I think here we have to look how we can create new bonds. In Davos at the WEF, we had with the financial sector discussions after Paris, and they told me we have a lot of bonds, conservative bonds, and when you want to change these to green bonds, we need incentives in the construction of these bonds. We have fees today where the regulators should now think about reducing these fees or eliminating these fees, that these green bonds, these green financial products have an attraction for investors. Many consumers, they want a change also in the financial industry. And for a bank, it does not matter if I invest in bridges, roads, or if I invest in green activities. So here, a lot of innovation is also required in the financial sector, and pension plans, where a lot of money is available. Here, also governments should think together with financial specialists how now we can move a little bit, I say, from brown to green. And here I think also innovation is key, that not only the technologies are developed, but also the financial solutions are in place to support your activities, to support your projects, that we have the value of death every year a little bit limited. So ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for the opportunity to say some words to you, and I hope this meeting will be very fruitful and a good begin of partnership between UK and Switzerland. Thank you so much.